As always, we heard the wise words of Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker today, and as always, they were on point. She speaks of and she actually, I think she's a UU because she was the president of one of our UU seminaries, but maybe she isn't, I don't know. Well, now I'm going to look it up. I like to claim her. She speaks of a certain depth of spiritual openness and presence that's always there for us in all the ways that we bless the world. Her words also speak to a valid criticism of Unitarian Universalists, the idea that UUs are so concerned with our doing that we neglect our being, that we don't feel like we're good enough as we are, and we focus too much on what we aim to accomplish. Now, when I heard this observation of us busy little beaver UUs online this week, I'd heard it before, the irony was not lost on me that I was writing a sermon called When the Spirit Says Do. It is our culture here to be very accomplishment-oriented. And today I'm going to tell you all why Unitarian Universalism and Columbine Church in particular are great places to spend your energy, and why service is so essential to the practice of our faith. We are the church of the helping hands. We do get stuff done. But at the same time, the observation that UUs are a little obsessed with doing and a little bit prone to neglecting our being is also true. It's a reminder that without any nuance or dimension, a call to service can ring hollow. If we find ourselves working and working and working to change and fix and save this hurting world, it's just not spiritually sustainable. If we don't have a joyful grounding in spirit, then the desire to save the whole wide world and everyone in it will crush our spirits and leave us feeling defeated. We were reminded of this I think it was in June, when Vicki Wilhite spoke to us about her work with Together Colorado. She said, quote, "We are called to serve matters not with anger or despair, but with joy and boundless hope." And I cut and pasted that out of her script, and she has joy and boundless hope capitalized. We are called to serve matters not with anger or despair, but with joy and boundless hope. And you may recall that Vicki herself is a ball of laughter and loving, joyful energy that just makes people want to be in her presence and inspires me and others to be part of the work. Together Colorado's vision of social justice and the work they do together, and we are one of their member congregations, they've learned that even when there are setbacks or frustrations, their work is still relational and it's joyful. They keep a sense of humor about things. They share food, they don't go hard on each other, and because of all that, they are resilient. They know that the work becomes a spiritual practice when we are in it to bless the world, even if ultimately we cannot fix the world. It's so easy to feel like we are pushing a boulder up a hill when our goals to eliminate fascism and poverty and war and oppression, or even to keep our little church going, seem insurmountable, seem unobtainable, seem difficult. It's hard not to get swept under and cynical when our collective fear and grief and shock of what is happening in this world is so acute. If we aren't careful, we will become reactionary, working against things rather than working with each other and for each other with a vision of just the next step towards a better world. That next piece of legislation, that one person with their hungry belly filled or their rent paid, without willingness to take a step and a step and a step, we can get beat down and exhausted and cynical, and that does not bless the world. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. When I was a young adult just going out into the world, I worked and worked to promote eco-villages and an ecologically sustainable lifestyle. And by the time I was 28 years old, I was burned out. Service without a spiritual component, without relationality, without joy and rest is not actually sustainable living. As young adult eco-villagers, we were in our heads problem-solving the environmental crisis and how to spread the word to the most people the fastest of a better way to live. And there was so much work to do. We didn't realize that part of the work was to rest and rejuvenate, to be imperfect, to be human, and to have fun together. We didn't put much value on joy when we thought we were on a timeline to save the world from environmental destruction. Well, it's not only ridiculous to think that a few Stanford grads and me were going to save the world from environmental destruction, but it was a little arrogant too. And what a relief. We don't actually have to save the whole world by ourselves. And I'm still learning to stop working during craft night, to take Mondays off, to keep a regular spiritual practice, and to watch my words to make sure they are spreading love and peace and abundance, not negativity and scarcity. To frame my work as a holy and never-ending privilege. It is a privilege to work for justice, and it is a privilege to work for this church, for all of us. As Unitarian Universalists, we call each other into the work, but then sometimes we stop short of remembering how to do it sustainably and joyfully, remembering the deeper why behind our commitment to service. You see, we don't have a theology of reward and punishment. I mean, some of us kind of play with the idea of karma, but really that's not part of our theology. So in Catholic school, my 8th grade teacher at Notre Dame over there had some theological call and responses she taught us. And I have to share with you that I wrote this earlier this week, and I happened to see her yesterday, which was really weird. And in my mind, she used to be this tall, and now she's this tall. Mrs. Taylor and I. So I got to tell her yesterday, "You're in my sermon tomorrow." And she said, "Oh, great, honey." Mrs. Taylor, back when she was tall, used to say, "People, why are we on earth?" And the whole class was trained to chime in unison, "To get to heaven." She had like 5 of those. But I remember it, right? And in that Catholic context, service is a really important way. It's a route to following the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it's a way to enter into the kingdom of heaven. But here we come from a universalist tradition, one that evolved from early scholars who studied sacred ancient scripture and didn't see hell written in the texts. They interpreted scripture to say that everyone is saved. Universal salvation, universalism. So if we aren't motivated to do good works in order to avoid punishment or work for that heavenly reward, then why do we do it? Well, that question is actually answered in the 6 sources of our UU faith. One of our sources is humanism. And humanism promotes a commitment to leading meaningful and ethical lives, to using reason and empathy to guide our decisions and our actions. Humanist values, because we are covenantal here, we are values-based. Humanist values suggest that we don't do good works or that we do good works in order to create heaven on earth. As UUs, we believe that when we work together to eliminate suffering and injustice for others, we help to pull our collective human community closer to heaven on earth, and that work in itself has intrinsic meaning and value. The poem that Richard and Cheryl shared with us today says, "The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide." Reverend Dr. Parker suggests that our service blesses the world in a way that isn't transactional or goal-oriented, because there is more to our being and doing than the rational and cognitive. Eco-villagers won't actually save the world. But why should they keep trying? Why should we all keep showing up when things are so dire? Because in the words of Reverend Dr. Parker, in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide, because we are all ministers. And when we find our groove of serving and blessing the world, it brings us joy. Whether it's caring for others, running the tech booth, making beautiful music, reading stories, organizing for social justice, working a retail job with love in our hearts, vacuuming the floor, making a cup of tea, listening to someone, or simply getting up in the morning to face another day. Our contributions to this time and this place and our human community are not always understood or appreciated, but there is mystery behind our understanding. Jack Kornfield says, "We all have, without exception, a very deep longing to give to others, to give to society, to work, to love, to care for this earth. And so there's a tremendous sorrow for a human being who doesn't find a way to give. One of the worst of human sufferings is not to find a way to love or a place to work or give of your heart and your being. The gift of this church is that you are seen and you are needed." Before I went to seminary, I used to think, I was a member of First Universalist, and I'd be like, I pay my pledge, why are they always on me to volunteer? I mean, I did have a lot of little kids, but I was like, come on, we're paying. Well, now that I'm on the other side, I get it. There's a few reasons, and I just wanted to articulate them today. The empirical, logical, rational reason that churches don't use a usual business model of payment for services rendered, and we don't require any set financial contribution. Here at Columbine, our operating budget is less than $150,000 a year, and we spend most of that money on paying our part-time staff. Volunteers are why a small amount of money allows us to provide worship and music and pastoral care and faith development and small group ministries. So that means your time and your skills and your talents are needed here. But there's more to why we don't just ask for a subscription fee to access all the things that churches provide. Because being needed is part of the spiritual practice. The UUA website says, volunteer service within UU churches has a profound impact on personal growth and transformation. Through serving others, individuals cultivate qualities such as empathy, compassion, and humility. The act of giving selflessly allows volunteers to expand their perspectives, develop a greater understanding of diverse experiences, and challenge their own biases and prejudices. As they witness the impact of their action on the lives of those they serve, volunteers often experience a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose, leading to personal growth and a strengthened connection to their spirituality. So we need your gifts. Because the talents and service of volunteers, because of the talent and the service of volunteers, this place has beautiful bulletin boards and artwork and beautiful music that's really quite a variety. And we have many worshipful offerings that come from many people, and coffee and food, and our children and youth are blessed with a diversity of perspectives and role models. Our garden is watered and tended. Our building is maintained. The care team are there for us when we need them. This church provides opportunities for us each to minister to each other. Even those of us who are disabled or homebound contribute to this community and to each other. And some of us contribute by being grateful and graceful receivers. It is our service to each other and our acceptance of that service that blesses the world. If you would like to volunteer here at Columbine, if you'd like to do social justice work with Columbine, but you're not sure what your ministry is or what you have time for, please come see me. I like to play like career counselor, only low stakes. There's no like tuition involved or anything. But if you have a passion and you don't know what that, or you don't know exactly where your skill set or your passions connect in, let's figure it out. We need people to work with our children in teams. We need people to organize for social justice. We'd like to have more art shows, more adult faith development, and to host social gatherings, kitchen people, maintain our building, and help with stewardship. We need a stewardship committee. We haven't had one for a while. Most churches do. That will start up in the spring. And we need a safety team. We have a lot of people who have worked and served for years and years and years who are kind of ready to pass the torch. So this is the moment. If you're interested in something, you could be like the journeyman, the apprentice. We need, and even if you're someone who has more needs than you have time or ability to serve others, we need your graceful acceptance of the ministry of others. Whoever you are invited to be a part of this machine, this system that graces each other and blesses the world. Blessed be, and may it be so.